I'm Vera. The courtroom was filled with a tense silence as I sat, framed in the upper corner of the screen above the judge's bench. Across the room, Ethan entered, looking like a man who hadn't slept in days. His suit was rumpled, his tie loose, and his eyes darted around the courtroom as if he was searching for an escape. He looked up at the monitor and froze. His attorney leaned in to whisper something, but Ethan didn't move, didn't blink. He just stared at me, the woman he'd tried to erase. I let my gaze rest on him calmly, not cold, not cruel, just steady. It all started when I met Ethan. I was a young entrepreneur, full of dreams and ambition. I'd built a successful company from the ground up, and I was proud of what I'd accomplished. Ethan, on the other hand, was charming and smooth-talking. He swept me off my feet, and we got married. At first, everything was perfect. He was attentive and loving, and I thought I'd found the man of my dreams. But as time went on, I started to notice some strange things. He was always on his phone, and he seemed to be hiding something from me. One day, he suggested we take a trip to the mountains. He said it would be a chance for us to get away from it all and spend some quality time together. I was hesitant at first, but I decided to go along with it. The drive up the mountain was long and winding. The trees rustled like whispers, and the leaves had just begun to turn, their yellow edges curling like paper secrets. Ethan wheeled me to the porch, a travel mug in his hand and that grin on his face, the one he always wore when he'd already made up his mind. "It'll be good for you, Vera," he said. "Air like this, you'll feel born again." I remember nodding slowly, not because I agreed, but because that's what you do when someone's already decided how you're supposed to feel. He packed light, 2 bags, both his. He said he'd already stocked the cabin. I asked if we were meeting anyone there. He paused just for a second too long, then smiled. "Nope, just you, me, and the trees." I should have asked more questions, should have insisted on bringing my own bag, but I wanted to believe him, that maybe finally he wanted time alone with me, not for show, not for penance, but for us. The drive took hours. Up winding gravel roads, the signal dropped somewhere past the 3rd ridge. I watched as bars on my phone vanished, first 3, then 2, then nothing. Dead silence. Ethan chuckled. "Now that's freedom." I glanced at him. "You forgot your phone?" "Didn't forget," he replied. "Left it in the glove box intentionally." I turned back to the window, watching birch trees blur past. That knot in my chest pulled tight. He'd done this before, the off-the-grid thing, usually after a fight, usually when I'd caught him lying, but this time I hadn't said anything. He said I was too tense lately, that I needed to recalibrate my nervous system. He'd been reading books apparently, about trauma, mind-body connection, healing in nature. I wanted to scream, but instead I nodded again like I always did. He pulled the SUV to a stop near a worn wooden post, an overlooked trail, 0.4 miles. "I'll push," he said. I didn't have a choice. The path narrowed as we moved forward, roots tangled beneath the soil, and I could hear him muttering as he navigated. Sweat beaded on his brow. He didn't speak much, just grunted now and then, adjusting his grip on the handles behind my chair. My ring glinted in the light. I caught my own reflection in it, tired eyes, jaw tight, but still wearing it, still holding on. He finally stopped. We were at the edge, the overlook curved out into open air. Below us, a deep ravine was splashed with copper trees, the kind of view that makes you forget you're breathing. "Beautiful," I whispered. "Yeah," he said softly. "Almost makes you forget everything else." I felt his hands grip the handles tighter. "Vera," he said, crouching down beside me. "Do you remember that night at the lake before everything went sideways?" I blinked. "The fireworks?" He nodded. "You laughed so hard you cried." I did remember, barefoot on a dock, wine, no wheelchairs, just us. "I miss that version of us," I said. He smiled again, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah," he said, standing up straight. Me too. Then he leaned in like he was about to kiss my cheek. Instead, he whispered, "Good luck, babe." And the world tilted. It happened so fast. The chair jolted forward. My hands grabbed for the armrests instinctively, but there was no stopping it, no catching the fall. Air rushed past my ears, my heart slammed against my ribs. I didn't scream, I couldn't. And then a flicker. Just beyond the cliff's edge, above us in the trees, there was movement, not an animal, someone watching. And when I opened my eyes, I wasn't dead, but I wasn't alone either. There was no sky above me, no sun, no trees, just a low ceiling of plywood planks and dim light bleeding through a cracked lantern on the floor. I blinked hard, once, twice. My ears rang. My body ached. The last thing I remembered was the edge, the sharp breath before the fall, and Ethan's voice in my head like rot, "Good luck, babe." I didn't know what to expect after that, but this wasn't death. "You fell," a man's voice said, steady, low, too calm. I turned my head slightly. A face hovered nearby, tired eyes, scruffy beard, salt and pepper hair pulled back messily. He looked like someone who lived with the woods, not in them. He knelt a few feet from where I lay on an old camping mat, not touching me, just watching. I tried to speak, but my throat scraped raw like I'd swallowed gravel. He handed me a tin cup. "Just water." I took a small sip, cold, metallic, real. "Where am I?" My voice barely made it out. "Safe," he said. "For now." Not exactly reassuring. I glanced around. The place was small, like a hunting shelter or emergency storm bunker. Wooden walls, packed dirt floor, no windows, a few crates, canned goods, a sleeping bag rolled neatly in a corner. I tried to sit up. Pain shot through my left shoulder and side. My legs, still paralyzed, still mine. But my wheelchair? Gone. I looked at him again. "Who are you?" "Owen," he said. No last name, no further explanation. I waited, nothing, just the flicker of a candle behind him. "I should be in a hospital." "You weren't bleeding out," he replied like that settled it. "I cleaned your wounds." "You were unconscious about 4 hours." That couldn't be right, could it? I tried to think past the pounding in my skull. "Why didn't you call someone?" "There's no reception up here and no signal in the valley either, not for miles." That part at least I believed. Ethan had mentioned it on the way up. Off-grid, just us and the trees today. How romantic. I swallowed another sip of water, then laid back slowly. My ribs throbbed, my skin stung in places, my heart hadn't stopped racing since the second the wheels left the edge. "Why were you out there?" I asked. Owen didn't answer right away. He just sat back on his heels and looked toward the door, thick wood, padlocked from the inside. "I live nearby," he said finally. I heard something, got curious. Not a full answer, not a lie either. He stood and walked to a small shelf, rummaging quietly. I studied the space again, too clean, no cobwebs, no clutter, a half loaf of bread wrapped in cloth, a pile of books, a lantern with fresh batteries. Everything felt ready, prepared. I tried to mask the chill that crawled through me. He returned with a small packet, bandages and ointment. "Let me check your side," he said. "I'll keep it quick." I let him, for now. His hands were steady, but I watched his eyes. "Name's Vera," I said. "I know," he replied. My stomach dropped. "What?" "I saw the necklace, monogrammed," he said. I touched my collarbone. The chain was still there, cool against my skin, VH. Ethan had it made the first year we were married, in case you ever get lost. He joked. Owen didn't smile, just applied the ointment and rewrapped my side with medical tape, firm but gentle. Then he moved away again. "You're lucky," he said, not looking at me. "You hit the slope before the rocks." I didn't feel lucky. We sat in silence after that. I let my eyes drift shut just for a moment, but the dark behind my lids was worse, so I stayed awake and thought about Ethan, about the last 3 weeks. He'd been attentive, oddly so, bringing me breakfast, asking how I was sleeping, telling me, "You've been through so much, babe. Let's just simplify everything, sell the extras, make life easier." At the time, I thought he meant decluttering the garage, but then there was that call he made on speaker. Yeah, I liquidated the stock just like we said. When I asked what it was about, he laughed. "Boring finance stuff, you wouldn't care." I cared now. He'd been laying the groundwork, the trip, the hike, the way he left his phone in the car, the way he kissed my forehead just before he. I flinched. Owen had gone quiet again. He was sitting on a crate now, flipping through a book. A real paperback. No screens, no distractions, no way to call for help. My body still ached, but my brain started working again. I scanned the room. No phone, no pictures. But nothing about this space felt temporary. There was one cabinet near the back, wooden, small, locked. But the drawer above it wasn't. The next morning, or maybe hours later, he stepped outside for firewood. I waited until the sound of boots on dirt faded, then pulled myself across the floor. Slow. Every inch a war. The drawer slid open with a low creak. Inside, matches, a pen, a half-used notebook, and a folder. One photograph slipped between receipts and a local hiking map. I froze. It was me, my wedding, 3 years ago, taken from a distance, like with a zoom lens. My ivory dress, my arm looped in Ethan's. The angle was all wrong, like someone had been hiding behind the trees. And standing off to the left, barely visible in the blurred background, a shadow of a man. The same eyes, the same beard. Owen. My mouth went dry. That was the moment I stopped feeling rescued and started feeling hunted. The air inside the bunker shifted the moment I slid the photo back into the drawer. I didn't slam it. I didn't make a sound. But something inside me, some instinct older than trust, stood upright. When Owen returned, carrying a bottle of water and a folded wool blanket, I didn't waste time pretending. "Where did you get that photo?" He froze mid-step, but not in guilt. More like someone who'd been waiting for that exact question. His eyes didn't blink. "I was there," he said. I narrowed mine. "At my wedding?" He placed the blanket down slowly and nodded. "Not as a guest." I watched because I needed to see him again. I stared. The words scratched against my skin like sandpaper. Not because I didn't believe him, but because a part of me already knew. "I want the truth, Owen. All of it. No riddles, no half-stories. Who are you? Why were you there?" He sat, not across from me, but beside the small heating unit in the corner, as if warming himself was more urgent than defending himself. "His name's Ethan, right?" He began quietly. I didn't answer. "He took something from me once," he continued. "And the day I saw his name in the paper, your engagement, the same last name. I followed him. I waited. I saw the signs. And then, I found you." A silence filled the space that even the buzzing heater couldn't break. I wanted to scream. I wanted to curl into a ball and disappear. But instead, I just stared at the man who claimed to know my husband better than I ever did. "Who are you to him?" I asked, my voice thin. Owen tilted his head. "No one he'd remember. But my sister might have." Something tightened in my stomach. "Her name was Lily," he said. "She dated Ethan about 10 years ago. She fell from a second-story balcony, broken spine. They said it was an accident. But Ethan disappeared a month later. Clean cut." I closed my eyes. I could hear Ethan's voice again in my head, sarcastic, dismissive, always just sweet enough to confuse you. "You really think I need your name on anything? You've already got me, baby." That's all you need. He said that when I mentioned drafting a will. We were barely 3 months into marriage. I'd laughed it off at the time. I thought it was romantic. Twisted, maybe, but romantic. Now it sounded like a threat I'd been too naive to hear. You've been watching him this whole time? I whispered. Long enough to know he repeats himself, Owen muttered. New cities, new women, same patterns. You weren't the first, Vera. I looked down at my wrist, still bruised beneath the gauze. And you what? Stalked my wedding? Waited until he tried something again? Owen didn't respond. Instead, he reached into the inside of his jacket and pulled out a small leather notebook. I log everything. Every city, every woman I suspected. You're the first who didn't vanish without a trace. He got sloppy. My throat tightened. Because of the insurance? Owen nodded. It's always money. He plays the long game. Love bombs, isolates, waits, but he doesn't leave fingerprints. That fall of yours? It didn't look like an accident. A cold silence passed between us. He wasn't wrong. That morning, before the stairwell, Ethan had asked if I'd remembered to send the updated beneficiary form. Just in case, he joked, holding my coffee mug out with an odd little smile. I never drank it. I'd poured it down the sink, distracted by A. But I'd wondered about that smile for days. Now I didn't have to. Does anyone know I'm alive? I asked suddenly. Owen shook his head. Not unless they followed your wheelchair into that ditch. I exhaled slowly. My ribs ached, my pride worse. Then let's keep it that way. Owen looked up. I want Ethan to think he won. Let him plan his next move, start spending what he thinks he inherited. I want to watch him unravel in real time. A faint flicker of something passed across Owen's face. Respect, maybe, or recognition. You really think you can pull this off? I nodded once. But I'll need time, and you to watch. And you? He asked. I looked toward the drawer, then at my bandaged hands. All right, I said. Everything I remember, every conversation, every red flag I ignored. I'll build a timeline so clean even his charm won't save him. Owen nodded slowly, rising to hand me a fresh notebook. No cover, no label, just a blank page and a ballpoint pen. I flipped to the first line, then paused, because the only thing more dangerous than a man who thinks you're weak is one who thinks you're gone. I watched the motel curtains shift in the breeze from the cracked window. Faint sounds of a vending machine humming outside. Owen was out grabbing a burner phone and some groceries. I told him to pick up the kind of cereal Ethan always said was for poor people. It made me laugh under my breath. That small defiance felt good, like spitting on a memory without making a scene. I waited until I heard his car roll away, waited longer still, just in case. Then, I stood, moved to the end of the bed, and reached for the inside hem of my coat. There, stitched beneath the lining, right where the seam dipped under the armpit, was a thin flap. I tugged it open and pulled out the pouch, just a small waterproof plastic sleeve. Sealed, discreet, and mine. Inside was a flash drive and a folded note. I held them like you would a match about to strike. You never noticed I never let you pack for me, I whispered. Ethan had always insisted on controlling our travel, flights, luggage, hotels, but I always drew the line at packing. He thought it was stubbornness. It was survival. I laid the items on the table and sat quietly, fingers tracing the edges of the drive. Part of me wanted to burn it all. Another part, the bigger one, was ready to use it. 15 minutes later, Owen came through the door carrying a small bag and a look of mild suspicion. You look like someone just saw a ghost, he said. I shook my head. Just remembering I'm not one. We sat up on the table. Owen opened his old laptop. He kept it for dirty work, as he put it. No cloud backups, no Bluetooth, just wires and dust and secrets. He handed it over without asking. I plugged the drive in. I could feel my pulse in my neck. The screen blinked to life. First folder, photos. I clicked. There he was, Ethan, at a country club gala in Carmel, at a tech conference in Vegas, at a ski resort with men I didn't recognize. No dates lined up with our shared calendar. No mention of these in any of the business trips I cooked for. And in every single photo, I wasn't there.